coming back from Columbus Flea Market. It was not a great day. It was not a bad day. It was reasonable. In fact, I put in the title, it was reasonable-ish. So I'm driving home now on the New Jersey Turnpike going north, heading back to New York City. And I'm bored off my face, and I'm exhausted. So instead of talking to myself, I'm going to talk to the phone. Hopefully that's better. I guess kind of the major problem with today was that it was supposed to rain. It's 3:33 right now. It was supposed to start raining about right now. What happened though is it started drizzling from about, I think, 8 o'clock in the morning. And it kept doing this on and off all day long. Between very light drizzles to outright rain. I sell small electronics. I put up my canopy and tarp and so on, but I really should have just left because my stuff can't get wet at all, and it can screw it up. So I had to keep moving my tables back and forth. And I always come with a towel to blot my merchandise and things like that. The other side of the coin is it turned out to be worth it. Attendance was low, probably because of the weather. And a few things happened. I guess I'll explain those. But it wasn't a bad day. It wasn't a good day. So one thing that happened was that despite the drizzling, some vendors just pack up and go. They don't even give it a chance. At least I have small electronics and so on that can get actually damaged, but other people have stuff that will not be affected at all by the rain. If it's, say, pottery or something, or even a lot of the used clothing and so on. Certainly a light drizzle, it can give it a musky smell and so on, but some of the people are going to be getting rid of it or just throwing it out right after that anyway. Some of these people are not just coming one time and saying, "Oh my God, it's raining," and exiting. They're standard people there, and it's interesting that they don't have ways to protect themselves from the rain, and they don't wait it out. So in any event, in my row, as soon as the first significant drizzle came, and by the way, it's starting to pour right here now. As soon as the first significant drizzle started coming, 6 vendors immediately started packing up, and they fully packed up and left. This is pretty much after taking an hour and a half to set up. I don't know why somebody would get up early in the morning, come, set up, and then it doesn't even pour or anything like that. It's just drizzling, and they just decide that they're going to just go. What it does is it kind of destroys the market because people are not going to, even if people came, because this has an indoor parking zone, they might just spend time there. Or what happens is that there's lots of holes in your road, the people are not going to walk down your road. So there's been many times I've been markets where I'm the only person down the end of the road, which is part of your strategy when you pick your spot in the first place. I didn't really have a choice in this. Today I'm a daily at Columbus, and there was no better spot. So I just took the first available best spot, and then people left. So let's talk about just general things about when it does rain and so on at the flea market. So first of all, for yourself, if it's cold out, you should have multi-layers of stuff, so you can take off things as well as put on things. I think I mentioned yesterday that I normally have 2 flannel shirts and about 4 hoodies and a coat. Usually my daughters are wearing them, but there's days I do get cold too. You should have thermal socks, and reciprocally, if it's in the summertime, you should be wearing shorts and a t-shirt. I use gloves as well, both in the summer. So I'm doing putting up the canopy and so on, and moving the boxes. You can often cut your hand and so on. Some people don't do that, and the hand gets filthy and stuff too. Wear appropriate shoes, depending on whether you're in somewhere that's muddy or not. In terms of protecting against the sun, bring sunblock, put it on. You can get really sunburnt even under a tarp sometimes. Speaking of which, you should have some shelter mechanism. It could be a pop-up tent, or it could be the canopy piping systems. And you could just Google those, either one of them, to see what they're about. The pop-up tents are often on sale for $99. Lately, they're the smaller tents for $99, but you can still get a 10 by 10 tent, and that can cover at least some of the crucial stuff if it does start raining. You can also get 2 tents. There's also 12 by 12 tents and 20 by 12 tents. Some of them can end up costing lots and lots of money, but you can get. It's possible. Often, Sports Authority has 10 by 10 tents for $99. And what you could do when you get it there is buy the insurance, so that if something happens to it, you can bring it back. Sometimes what happens to it, though, is that it gets twisted up into a pretzel. So you have to realize that many canopies are flimsy. Certainly the pop-up ones, many are. There's some that aren't. So what you should be bringing with you is a bunch of bungee cords and a bunch of weights. So some people like to fill up PVC piping and fill it up with concrete and do bungee the canopy down with that. I don't use a pop-up tent anymore. I've probably lost 20 or 30 of them through bad weather and so on. I use the fencing piping mechanism canopies with a top over it, and I bungee cord that down to the wheels of my car. You can hook it onto the modern day cars that don't have the hubcaps on them anymore, so you could hook it through the wheel spoke. Make sure your bungee cord is tight, so that your canopy can't flip over. And by the way, on that note, even on the best of days, there's no wind and it's sunny, all of a sudden some prevailing westerly or some change in the weather happens, especially in the New York City area. Like at 3 o'clock, our wind direction often changes and so on, depending on where you are. So there's that kind of a thing, that it can be calm and then whoosh, all of a sudden, from because we're by the water, the heat from the land is going to suck up the air and create a different direction of weather dynamics. So you should always bungee cord down your canopy no matter what. And if you do it ritualistically in the morning when you put up your canopy, don't put up your... the first thing I do is put up my canopy. Some people put up their merch first and then their canopy. I find it easiest to do that. First of all, I have a Tucson, and my car is too small to fit stuff, so actually I have to take some stuff out to get the canopy and so on. So it just logistically, that makes sense for me to do it that way. But I also want the canopy up first, and then it's done with, and I don't need to drag it back and forth, over the tables, knocking over merch, all this other stuff like that. So between putting the canopy up and start putting my merch out, I will not do anything. I will bungee cord the things down, and it's just something that just becomes part of the ritual of setting up. Similarly, I bungee cord the other side, the non-car side of my canopy, to I can't remember the number. It could be 15-pound weights that go into barbells. I hook it into the center of the plate-shaped cylinder with the hole in the center, the flattened donut, so to speak. I hook it into that, and they're skinny enough, and they fit on the side of the back of my car. So I have one each on both sides of the front, and the back sides are bungee cord right up to the car. And I'll move the car sometimes to get it so I can bungee cord onto each wheel. And I use a tarp on the top, a canvas. Again, I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it's a thicker canvas that's coated with plastic. It also has UV protection. Realize though that it's only partial protection. And by the way, there's some philosophies. I have a white canvas tarp, that I just explained, some people say that actually gets you hotter, and that you should be using a black tar. I don't know if somebody knows. Jump in and somehow comment, because I'm going to post this on YouTube as well. You can post comments on YouTube, or you can email me at envythisstuff.com. At envythisstuff@gmail.com. My website is defunct, so looking through the website will probably fail, or bring you to a domain name place who's trying to get me to pay more money to get the domain name back. So you should probably bring sunglasses, including in the wintertime. Make sure you have gloves in the wintertime. If you have family members with you, it's often handy to make somebody in charge of doing stuff like that. Of course, if they don't do it, then everybody's screwed. That way it doesn't get confusion, like, wait, I thought you were bringing the hoodies. No, I thought you were bringing the hoodies. You can avoid all that. We actually keep them in the car most of the time. Most of my hoodies, like I said, my daughters end up wearing them, really. I hardly ever do, and they always just stay in the car. They never go anywhere else. Actually, that probably reminds me, we need to wash them. They probably stink. Make sure you're wearing proper shoes. In some locations, if I did some other scopes where I talked about local markets, some of them have non-paved grounds, and some of them, furthermore, not only they're not paved, but you could be doing sand, grass, or hard dirt. Some of them are prone to be muddy and so on. So in some cases you may want to be wearing boots. Like in the summertime, I like to wear sandals. My feet right now are killing me, even though I'm wearing Skechers. If I'm going to do a market in the summer, I can't wear sandals to somewhere that's going to be muddy, from maybe it rained the day before, or it's just naturally soft dirt or something. Sometimes there's lots of activities in some markets beyond just the market, and the dirt can be softened. Because it could be reciprocally where the ground is very dry. So on that note too, if you're in a market that's very dry, your merchandise can get filthy. So be aware of that. We have a duster thing that we can dust stuff off. But also from a personal perspective, if you have asthma or something, be concerned about that. On the same note, we're at many markets where we get eaten alive by bugs. So bring bug spray, and make sure you have long clothing on. And now with all these diseases that are being carried around by mosquitoes and all this other stuff, it's not worth getting sick because you went to a flea market. What else? Make sure you have clear plastics, so that if it just drizzles, you can have something like that. You can have quick stuff that you can just get from Home Depot or somewhere similar. I've yet to really find a good source of totally clear plastic. I find what happens is that I'm usually the first vendor to put the plastic on because my stuff can't get wet. And like I mentioned earlier, some vendor stuff, everybody's thinking, hey, it's soaking wet. But a lot of vendors, if you're selling detergent, Tide, bottles of plastic Tide, they can get wet, and before they put them in the car, all they have to do is towel them off. So they have a different consideration than me. But I find it's hard for me to get a totally clear plastic, because what happens is when it rains is the customers don't go completely away. There's still people walking around, unless it's unsafe and there's lightning or something, or whatever. But there are customers who keep shopping. I shop. I sell through the winter, and there's people walking around in 0-degree temperatures every week. So you have to watch out for that. Also, family members. Most vendors are running family-owned businesses. There are some corporate kind of vendors as well, usually run by the flea markets themselves. But make sure if you have a younger member of the family, that you know where they are, right? Because that's a safety issue, especially when there's going to be inclement weather of some sort. And make sure they have all their things. And equally, when you leave the flea market, if I can count how many times my daughters lost their hat or their gloves leaving the flea market, I can't. It blows my mind. We also have a ritual, by the way, when we leave the flea market, because there's times where we left stuff there. In fact, today I left the corner piece to my canopy there. I packed up. I had put it on the table because I have a hernia, and when I bend over, it kills me now. So putting my merch out and the canopy up is a problem. So I put it on the table, so I didn't have to lean down to the ground when I threw it there. And I packed everything up, went to the bathroom before I left, and noticed when I came back to the car, it was still on the table. So in any event, our ritual is to do a walk around, and also look under the car and look on top of the car, because there's times where we remember to do something, or when we're packing the car, a customer comes over, and I take a box out and put it on top of the car and get something out of it to sell to them, and then leave it on top of the car. So even though that's not strictly weather related, it's something that, so you don't want a bungee cord dragging anywhere, you don't want a rope coming out, all these things like that. Everything we carry is inside of our car. We don't put anything on top of the roof. So there's that. Other weather-related things are that, especially since I do winter-related things, make sure you have you're protected, because you don't want to get sick from that. Again, have the layers. Make sure you have your coat. You need a scarf. You need gloves. You need a hat. You may still need sun protection. Make sure your car is functioning properly, so that you don't get stuck there, or your car can make it there and back. You don't get screwed up by ice. One thing we like to bring relating to weather is a shovel. They don't always plow the fields properly, so when you get there, it may not be plowed at all, and you have to basically clean your spot, which is really silly. Or they may have done, let's say they did a good job and they just left a little patch of ice or something, and it turns out to be right in front of your spot, and you don't want a customer falling. It won't be your fault, but just out of common sense tells you that you should be making it easily accessible for your customers to get to your merchandise and tables and talk to you and things like that. So we have to bring a shovel. Also, make sure you have an ice scraper, things like that for your car. And one of the most important things with the weather is to have a smartphone, or at least a phone that can obtain reasonable weather reports. I have an iPhone 5, and I use what do I use? The Weather Channel app, and I think it's the weather.com app. Both of them are not perfect. In fact, both of them have a few problems. But at least you can get two so-called educated opinions on it. What happens too is you find out, you start learning the weather patterns of some of the places you go to. Some markets are always windy. Some markets, like I said, the wind may change direction at a certain time. Like you can set your clock to it. Some markets are up on a hill, so you know things are going to happen. Some markets are down in the valley. Some are by the water. You could be doing a flea market on a boardwalk. Okay, so you have to be concerned about stuff like that, and especially winds and stuff like that. What else can we say about the weather? I think I just had a thought, but I lost it. I think I was just explaining something and got caught up in myself. Sorry, I'm exhausted, so I'm trying to get my brain straight. Actually, talking here is keeping me awake. I'm 40 miles in, so I'm about halfway home. I'm about to exit the New Jersey Turnpike to end up going through what's called the Outer Bridge Crossing into Staten Island. And I don't know if people realize that New York City is actually pretty large, despite having so many people crowded together. It's actually a large land mass. We have something like 8.5 million people at the moment, and I don't know if you realize that where I'm going to enter here, I can go for 40 miles or about 38 miles, and still be in New York City. So it's actually a pretty long way. We like to focus on New York City being Manhattan, but there's 5 boroughs going from Staten Island and through Brooklyn or Queens, through the Bronx. That's a long trek. Okay. So on that note too, make sure you have antifreeze in your car, right? Make sure you have windshield cleaner things if you're driving through bad weather or something where they're salting the roads. So I just got my thought back. It was about the weather apps. So I use the weather.com app and the Weather Channel app, and often you would want to really use them just as guides, because often they're wrong. What they'll do too is they'll give you a weather prediction and they will not update it. So for instance, from this morning it said it was going to rain at Columbus Flea Market at 3:30, and they'll keep that updated even though the weather has clearly changed. I mean, it's literally raining, and they're saying it's not going to rain until 3:30. But as time goes on, they're tweaking apps like that. Like now, they'll do something like they'll say it was going to rain at 3:30, but they'll have a live kind of thing. Well, it says people are reporting rain. Not they're reporting rain, not that they're detecting rain. People are reporting rain. So that's kind of silly, but at least it's something. So what you should do is have something which gives you the capability to get live information like that, and also start figuring out how to look at the maps yourselves. Many of the apps has the ability to look at the radar and see a rain cloud, with Doppler radar and things like that. So look at it and try to understand what the different colors mean. Normally a light green means it may not even be raining where you are. A dark green means it's going to be raining. When it's pinkish, it could be snowing or storming of some sort. If it's in the summer, it's going to be probably a darker yellow or something, which means it's thunderstorms. Okay? And what you can do is there's often a replay mechanism, so you can see which direction the rain is going. Is it moving away from you? Right? Is it coming towards you? Is it just skimming over the top of you? Right? Or is it going to come right at you? So they're going to run some heuristic algorithm on it and predict which way it had. Which way? First of all, they're going to do which way it came. Can I have a receipt, please? Thank you. So there's often a replay to see what happened in about the last half an hour of weather, so that way you can get a sense of what was happening with the weather. What is it coming fast? Is it coming towards you? And what seems to be happening? Because sometimes it can be coming right at you and then it dissipates. And in addition to that, there's also a snapshot exactly where is the storm system that very second. And then there's often a forecasting radar thing which runs a heuristic on the computer model and spits out a radar showing what's going to happen, say, in the next half an hour. So I find that very useful In fact, I found it more useful than the forecasts. So, for instance, today I checked that out many, many times because I couldn't trust just the forecast. I mean, it was good that it told me it was going to rain at some point, but since it wasn't telling me when it was raining, and it was interesting because on the first rain, I had checked it about 5 minutes before, and there was no storm system or rain clouds in the neighborhood, and then it was drizzling, and then there was the first fog drizzle, I called it, and then the first so-called real rain. When I looked at that, there was actually a band of rain that was going past. It looked like it was the skinniest little thing, and that's basically what happened today. So once whatever that weather system was started, there was bands of rain that kept coming. Apparently, there was a large storm going on in Pennsylvania, and that was spinning off, kind of almost like at the tail. And sometimes it would dissipate and go away, and sometimes it wouldn't. So you should really get an app like that shows you realistic radar things. Not necessarily clouds. I don't really care that it's cloudy, because it could be really cloudy and not rain. And it depends on the type of clouds it is. It could be clouds really high up. They're not rain clouds. Okay, so I don't want to really get scientific and so on, but in some ways you need to start learning how to use the app and recognize those things. And again, let's see how your app deals with the different colors. But just because it's green and rain clouds doesn't mean it's going to rain where you are. Okay? So I find that very, very useful. And sometimes the two apps can disagree, and sometimes I use it to double check because some of the apps have delayed radar and some have live radar. If I'm not mistaken, the Weather Channel has a 15-minute delay and the other one has live. So you can often use the combination of the two of them to get a sense of, in addition to the replay of the past half an hour history, to get some sense of what's happening. Especially if you want to know, like, is it going to rain right now? Especially if a thunderstorm or something is breaking. Of course, on a day like today where they were not forecasting it was going to pour like crazy, and so on, there's other strategies you can use as well. Like I put the tarp over, and as long as it drizzled, my stuff did get wet, but not terribly so when I blotted it up, and I crunched the tables up, which hurt my sails too, which is why on days like this it might be worth, if it rained just a smidgen more, I think I would have left, because then I would have to cover it in plastic, and as I was alluding to earlier, the plastic, people can't really see through the stuff and see my stuff. I have 100 different items, right? I'm not selling perfume where it's clear this guy's selling perfume. I'm not selling jeans where it's clear the only thing under the plastic is different size jeans. So that creates its own dilemma and so on. So part of the moral of the lesson of looking at the app is that you need to know what time it's time to leave it. Okay? If you see a mother freaking storm coming, you better get packed up and get the hell out of there. Okay? And it could take you 2 hours to pack your stuff up. My stuff takes about an hour and a half to get out, and probably 2 hours to really get put up together, and it takes at least an hour to pack it back up. And it actually kind of doesn't change, even when my daughters are with me. It could still take just as long, because at least if we had a van, we could just start throwing stuff into it. But we have to, since we have the Tucson, we almost have to pack it in an exact order. The tables can really only go in one place. The paper boxes can really only fit in one place. The plastic containers, they can only really fit in one place. The pipes you see behind me, they can really only fit there. This board over here, we use that to kind of extend the table. That can really only fit there. Okay, so, and it creates a cascade of issues because I can't put that board in there until I get the stuff underneath it. right? And I can't do stuff in the back thing until I get some of the pipes in there. So my piping system is not full on pipes. We have pipes that we connect because they can't fit in the car any other way. So these are the pipes that go around the frame on the top that you see over here. There's also pipes holding up each foot, each leg or whatever. So they split in half, and they go in the so-called trunk of this thing. So because of the way it's all set up, we actually have to wait until we get the canopy down to fill the trunk up. I need to reanalyze that and figure something out about that. Another thing to be concerned about with the weather is sometimes, I thought it was kind of silly that some of the vendors spent an hour and a half setting up, and then when it just did the fog drizzle, and especially when it was the first drizzle, the fog drizzle, like 6 vendors started backing up, and when it's the real first thing, then a dozen were already packing up. A strategy against that is if you know it's going to rain. At least today it wasn't clear, but there are days where it is clear. We wait it out. If it's going to rain at 10 o'clock, then we might wait until 11:30 and then set up. Just sit in the car, take a nap, set your clock, use the weather apps, figure out when you think the rain's going to stop. And then keep checking it. And if it's going to be a few hours, take a nap. It'll be well earned. Let's see. Yeah, I have to pay another toll. I just paid like $10 or something. I'm going to pay, I think, $16 here. So it adds up. So with all the long trip I have to take today, yeah, this is 15. And that's part of your planning too. If it's pretty sure that it's going to rain, then it's going to rain. So another thing with the weather apps too. 1 second. Every receipt. Thank you. So the rule of thumb I use is that it gives a percentage. So it might say there's a 20% chance of rain, or a 10% chance of rain, or a 50% chance of rain. My rule of thumb is if it passes 30, it's going to rain. So if it gives 20%, it's probably not going to rain at all. And if it goes to 25, probably not at all. If it even hits 30, probably not. But you better watch it closer. But once it passes 30, there's probably a good shot that it's going to rain. So once it gets up to 60 70, yeah, it's raining almost guaranteed. Okay, and this is almost even true when it's a few hours beforehand. So you want to use those things with a grain of salt and rules of thumb too, depending on what they're going to predict for you. Often what happens too is, for instance, that they say it's going to rain on a Friday, especially say a Friday night. In fact, it may not rain until Saturday morning. So what you have to do is take a sure bet prediction that they give. If they're saying let's say all the weather news stations on TV or whatever, or are reporting that it's going to rain on tomorrow. Tomorrow's Monday. They're all reporting it's going to rain. It's probably going to rain then in the near future. Okay, it's not a guarantee. This is a prediction. But what happens though is I find that the storm system either comes earlier or later. So if they're predicting that it's going to rain Friday night, it may end up raining Saturday morning. And when you hit the flea market, it might still be raining and then eventually dissipate and stop. Similarly, if they say it's going to rain, say Saturday morning, it may come Friday night and be over and done with. The alternate, of course, is that it may rain Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon. So you have to plan all this accordingly. And again, we use the weather apps. So there's days like today, even though I passed out and woke up at 1:30, I did have the alarm set to go off a few times. It was going to go off at 2:30, then 3:15, and then I was going to get up at 3:30 if it was a thing. And in each of those steps, I was going to wake up and check the weather. It's not good for your sleep, but it's a strategy. Because what I don't want to do is just wake up and leave and randomly get there and then decide, oh, after I drove 85 miles, like, duh, it's raining. Okay? So, I'm in Staten Island now. Also, when it's raining, plan your commute. Sometimes, obviously, this is a long journey, but let's say I was going to a flea market 5 miles away. That could impede traffic enough that it takes you a pretty long time, especially if an accident happens or something. So remember that your normal routes could be severely disrupted with bad weather of some sort. Okay, even just a minor thing. It could knock down power lines, tumble trees, things like that on top of things as well. Just passed a bunch of geese. We have a large number of geese here in New York City, including all winter. That used to never happen, but they like to hang out, and we're passing somewhere now called Great Kills, which is a giant landfill, which stinks at times. But we also have other things like golf courses and the swamplands and other things that there's actually a lot of wildlife that occurs in New York. In fact, you may hear on TV, I don't know if you do in your places, but every so often we get a coyote and other things, which nobody knows how it gets there. For instance, coyotes in Central Park. Probably somebody pranks and puts it there, but it's possible because there's coyotes upstate New York and beyond New York, and really just beyond New York City is farms and lots of rural areas and so on. So it's not far-fetched that a coyote would walk down the highway, perhaps even walk over one of the bridges and end up somewhere in Manhattan. I don't know how they always find Central Park and not some other street, but who knows? We also have killer rats too. So, all right. Anyway, I'm moving off of anything useful here. Let's see. What other weather things can I think of off the top of my head? That may be it for now, because I'm exhausted. 50 miles home, but this is once the Staten Island Expressway was a nightmare, which I'm going to meet in about 2 seconds. I'm on the POW Memorial Highway or something like that, the Korean Veterans Memorial Highway, or 87 or something. Actually, I don't know. I've been thinking this road for so long that I don't even know the name of it. Anyway, it's going to connect into, I think, 87 or 287. I've been thinking that's a long doing that. And it's a nightmare. So the last 20 miles or something for me is often the worst. Especially when I get over the Verrazano Bridge and hit Brooklyn. The Belt Parkway is a nightmare. In fact, it's 4:11. Well, it's a Sunday, so it may not be so bad. Because I'm actually slightly earlier than normal. Okay. Again, I'm going to post these things on YouTube. My account is NB This Stuff. I believe it's NB Space This Stuff. I don't know how to get that as a straightforward path. If indeed that's the name of it. What is that? %20B or something like that? The space. But what you can do though is I'm putting hashtags in, but so you can do searching. So if you just search Envy This Stuff, it'll probably just find it. But if you want to search for Envy This Stuff, Periscope, Space YouTube, or some combination. Certainly the three of them should get you to the direct hits to some of the posts on YouTube, where you can comment on them as well. Again, my email is envythisstuff@gmail.com. I'm curious to see what other people think. Again, I'm no expert. I'm just the next slob on the bus here, who's also a a flea market vendor. Yeah, I learned a lot myself, but it would be good to swap experiences and hear what other vendors have to say. And I find a lot of vendors like to help new people. So if there's people thinking of becoming vendors, more power to you. All right, I'm gonna turn off now. Okay, peace out. GFTBA.